You stand in a forest that feels almost familiar. You are a survivalist. Your instincts are honed by a world you understand. You have no fear. You are ready. The dry snap of a twig echoes through the trees. Your brain scans its database. A bear? A wolf? The tension mounts, but it's based on a fatal error in comparison. From the undergrowth emerges not a monster, but a machine. Its gaze is intelligent, assessing. It doesn't growl. It simply observes. This is a hyaenodon. Its body is the embodiment of crushing power, not speed. You scream, wave your arms, try to appear larger. These are the rules of your world. But the hyaenodon doesn't react. It sees no threat. It sees no rival. It sees an element of the landscape that will soon become food. And you realize your mistake. You were never part of the equation. The skull of this creature, 62 centimeters long, was wider than your shoulders, and it was merely an ordinary predator of the era. But what if the real threat was entirely different? How could it be that a 20-ton herbivore, an Indricotherium, posed a greater existential threat than this specialized killer? 20 tons. That's the weight of 3 adult African elephants stacked one on top of the other. And for what reason, in a world teeming with colossal biomass, would you, the most adaptable predator in history, be doomed to a slow death by starvation? This isn't just a list of monsters. This is a dissection of a sealed death trap. We will reveal 6 keys that make survival here not just difficult, but mathematically impossible. And in 3 minutes, we will begin the deconstruction of the first and most insidious element of this trap, your own brain, which deceives you. So the first key to the trap, your brain perceives this world as familiar. The age of mammals. Sounds almost homely, doesn't it? Much safer than a world of alien, scaly dinosaurs. This is the deception. You see a hyaenodon and think hyena. You see an entelodont and think boar. Your brain applies familiar rules to them, based on your experience. But these animals evolved for 30 million years in a world where humans didn't exist. Your scent doesn't trigger instinctive fear in them. To them, you are not a threat, nor a rival. You are an anomaly, like a virus in an isolated ecosystem with no immunity. The guild of predators here was denser and more diverse than in the Mesozoic, and this pressure gave them an advantage. And that advantage wasn't in strength, but in information. What if the main threat that distinguished these predators from dinosaurs wasn't the size of their teeth, but what was happening inside their heads? Mammals are smarter. Their brains are larger. Their hearing and sense of smell, honed by millions of years of nocturnal life, were on another level. But another level wasn't just an improvement. It was total sensory superiority. Developed olfaction meant the ability to pick up your scent from miles away. The entire landscape was a sensory map for them, where you were always marked. Hiding from scent is impossible. A Tyrannosaurus, relying on sight, might not have noticed you if you froze. A Hyaenodon, whose olfactory bulbs were dozens of times larger than those of modern wolves, would have known of your presence an hour before visual contact. The chase begins long before the prey even knows it. You find the perfect hiding place, a narrow crevice in the rocks. You camouflage the entrance, cross a stream to throw off your scent. You employ all your known tactics and feel safe. You've outsmarted nature. But now, let's look at it through the eyes of a Hyaenodon. It's not looking for your tracks. It's following an invisible scent highway directly to your door. For it, there's no mystery. It's in no hurry. It can wait outside your shelter for up to 12 hours, expending almost no energy, knowing you are trapped. There's no escape through cunning here. Danger always knows where you are. But if intelligence doesn't save you, perhaps brute force will. We've established there's no hiding from these animals. Their intelligence and sensory capabilities transform the world into a death trap. But that was only half the problem. Their biomechanics were honed for hunting prey that was itself armored and gigantic. This gave rise to weaponry with no modern equivalent. Next, we will dissect the anatomy of this perfect killer. Creatures whose teeth were not merely fangs, but self-sharpening blades, and whose strategy wasn't about a quick kill, but methodical dismemberment. What would a predator evolved to hunt rhinoceros-sized animals look like? Your brain again suggests a trap, a wolf, a hyena. But the numbers shatter this illusion. a skull 62 centimeters long, a bite force capable of pulverizing a rhino's femur. Its jaws were designed not for strangulation like a cat's, nor for tearing flesh like a wolf's. Their sole purpose was structural destruction of the skeleton. Its molars worked like the blades of garden shears. With each bite, they slid past each other, constantly sharpening themselves. This allowed it to maintain lethal efficiency well into old age. But this machine was not alone. Another monster lurked in the shadows. How did it deal with prey several times its own size? You observe the attack. It doesn't attempt a quick bite to the neck. It looks clumsy, inefficient. This is another deception. Its target isn't the throat, but the hind limbs. One crushing bite shatters the pelvic bones, immobilizing the victim permanently. The prey won't run. It won't be able to resist. It might remain alive for several more hours while the predator methodically dismembers it. Paleontologists find skeletons of herbivores with healed rib fractures but almost never with healed pelvic fractures. Such a bite was a death sentence. But even this ruthless predator sometimes yielded its kill to another, even more audacious creature. Why could a creature nicknamed the Hell Pig strike fear into a Hyaenodon? The Entelodon wasn't a pure predator. It was a gigantic, aggressive omnivore, an opportunist. Its bony growths on its cheekbones weren't ornamental. They were weapons for battles in which they broke each other's jaws. They didn't just scavenge. They forcibly took fresh kills from other predators. Entelodont skulls are often found with deep bite marks from their own kind directly on the face. This was a world where even at the top of the food chain, there was no peace. But even these monsters feared someone else, someone who didn't want to eat them. We are accustomed to fearing those who hunt us. But what if the true, relentless threat comes from those who don't even notice us? The predators of this era were the peak of killer evolution, smarter, stronger, and more efficient than any modern counterpart. Yet even these super predators were not the largest animals in their ecosystem, and this created an entirely new, counterintuitive type of danger that inverted the pyramid of fear. There was an animal 10 times heavier than a hyaenodon. For it, a hyaenodon was no more of a problem than a fox is to an elephant. And it was this creature, not a predator, that posed an absolute, insurmountable threat to you. Next, we will meet a living skyscraper. How could a herbivore, peacefully munching on leaves, be more dangerous than a hyaenodon? Meet the Indricotherium, 8 meters at the shoulder, weighing up to 20 tons. That's not 3 elephants. That's 4 school buses. It doesn't just walk through the forest. It changes it. Trees you considered cover, it breaks without even noticing. It's impossible to hide from it because it destroys the very shelters. The thickness of its hide and muscle mass would make a bullet from a high-caliber rifle feel like merely a prick. This wasn't a threat. It was a force of nature. And the danger stemmed not from malice but from absolute indifference. You've set up camp by a stream. You are cautious. You control the perimeter. An illusion of control. The ground begins to vibrate. It's not an earthquake. From beyond the trees, a herd appears. They aren't running. They are simply heading to a watering hole. They don't see you. They don't sense you. To them, you don't exist. The Indricotherium moves through the forest like a river in flood. It doesn't aim to destroy bridges. It simply follows the laws of physics. You manage to leap out of the way. But your camp, your gear, your food supplies, everything turns to mud beneath their feet. You might survive an encounter with a predator, but you cannot survive where you are simply rendered irrelevant. Imagine yourself in its position. What would you do? 50 meters away, this animal stands, moving towards you. Your instincts scream, run, hide, freeze. Let's break down each option. Run. Its stride is 5 meters. It will cover that distance in 10 steps. You won't escape. Hide. The tree you hide behind is just a snapping twig to it. It will break it without noticing. Freeze. It will trample you, without even realizing it stepped on a living creature. All 3 basic instincts lead to failure. At this moment you realize you are not just vulnerable. You are nothing. Your existence holds no significance. But even if you evade the visible giants, there are enemies that cannot be seen at all. We've discussed predators from which there's no hiding, and giants from which there's no escaping. It seems all threats have been named. But even if by some miracle you managed to find a place free of hyaenodons and indricotheriums, you would still perish. Because the planet itself was your enemy, and its weapon was invisible. Over 90% of plants were poisonous. Next, we will delve into a world where lush greenery is poison, where the air can kill you overnight, and where water itself is a trap. We move from zoology to environmental forensics. We leave the world of big teeth and claws for a realm of silent, yet inevitable, death. You stand in the midst of a lush green paradise, and you are starving to death. This is not a metaphor. It's a biochemical fact. Dense forests, giant ferns, exotic flowers, all create the illusion of an endless food source. But 99% of this flora is poison to you. For 30 million years, plants waged chemical warfare against the digestive systems of megafauna, producing toxins and alkaloids to protect themselves. What was a nutritious salad for an Indricotherium would be a lethal dose for you. Familiar plant families, the foundation of our diet, cereals, legumes, rosaceae, either didn't exist yet, or were unrecognizable and extremely rare. You are in a vast supermarket where all the shelves are stocked with beautifully packaged cyanide. But even if you found something edible, the very air and temperature were your enemies. A greenhouse climate. Sounds like a tropical resort. But it's another trap. High levels of carbon dioxide and the absence of polar ice caps indeed meant higher average temperatures. But ice is the planet's giant thermostat. Without it, the climate became a seesaw. Isotopic analysis shows that daily temperature fluctuations could reach 45 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Scorching 104 degrees Fahrenheit during the day were replaced by piercing 50 degrees Fahrenheit at night. Your body, deprived of reliable shelter constantly destroyed by giants, would wage an endless war. During the day, against heat stroke; at night, against hypothermia. Every hour you would lose precious calories just to stay alive, because trusting your instincts in food selection would be slow suicide. You are hungry. You find a succulent, brightly colored fruit, vaguely resembling something familiar. You apply the universal edibility test taught to all survivalists. First, you rub it on your skin. No reaction. Then you touch it to your lips. No burning. You try a tiny piece. No bitterness. You wait. Nothing. You eat the fruit. An illusion of salvation. But the test failed. The toxins of Paleogene plants didn't act on taste receptors. Many contained neurotoxins similar to modern cytotoxin. They don't cause an immediate reaction. They slowly, over 6 or 8 hours, paralyze your respiratory system. By the time you feel the first symptoms, it will be too late. Here, the last pillar crumbles. Trust in proven knowledge. You cannot trust your eyes, your experience, your instincts. Plants are poison, but there are tons of meat around. Why not just hunt? So we've established the planet itself is your enemy. The flora is poisonous. The climate is extreme. Survival in this green desert seems impossible. But all of human history, all your intuition screams, hunt! If there are animals, there is food. This seems like the only logical way out. And this is where the cruelest and most counterintuitive paradox of this era lies, which we announced at the very beginning. Why, in a world overflowing with biomass, would you be doomed to a slow death by starvation? Why was hunting megafauna, small animals, and even scavenging impossible for you? There are 3 insurmountable barriers that turned hunting from salvation into suicide. The next key to the trap will show why, in a world full of food, you would inevitably die of exhaustion. 20 tons of walking meat before you, yet you are doomed. How is this possible? Your plan seems logical: track, ambush, use a primitive spear. This entails colossal energy expenditure for pursuit with almost zero chance of inflicting any harm on the creature. But let's say a miracle occurred. You killed an Indricotherium. Now you have 15 tons of fresh meat in a hot and humid climate. It starts to rot in 2 to 3 hours. You have neither the tools for quick butchering nor salt for preservation. 99% of the kill is guaranteed to spoil. But that's not the main problem. The scent of fresh blood and decomposing flesh in the warm air travels for tens of kilometers. You haven't secured food. You've rung the dinner bell for Hyaenodons and Entelodons. This deadly trap forces you to seek smaller prey. So, giants are unattainable. Why couldn't one survive by hunting rodents, birds, or small ungulates? You set snares, prepare traps. This seems like a realistic path to survival. But the niches for small and medium-sized predators were densely occupied. Dozens of faster, more agile, and more discreet hunters with perfect sensory abilities vied for every potential prey. Your attempt to compete with them would be like trying to catch fish with bare hands in a raging torrent. There are many fish, but the current is too swift. This is the medium-sized trap. You are too small and weak to hunt giants, but too slow and clumsy to consistently catch small game. Active hunting is a failure. But there remained one last, most humiliating option: scavenging. You find a dead carcass. It seems like salvation. Minimum effort, maximum calories. The predator who made the kill has left. You approach, but see only bone fragments. The bone-crushing jaws of the Hyaenodon left no meat behind. They extracted even the bone marrow, leaving what is inaccessible to humans without tools. But even if you were lucky enough to find a piece of flesh, it would already be teeming with unknown pathogens and parasites to which you have no immunity. And then you realize the carcass isn't abandoned, it's guarded. From behind the rock, an entelodont emerges. It didn't come to finish eating. It came to claim everything, including anyone nearby. The role of scavenger is already taken. All paths to sustenance are closed. But this perfectly tuned system itself was doomed. For what reason did a world that would have guaranteed your death ultimately destroy itself? We've proven the trap's airtight nature. Hunting giants is suicide. Hunting small game is inefficient. Scavenging is deadly. It seems like a perfectly balanced ecosystem in which you are a weak foreign body. But this stability was an illusion. There was an external force, invisible and relentless, that was immeasurably more powerful than Hyaenodons and Indricotheriums. This force was the planet itself, changing its rules. It didn't just kill individual creatures, it wiped their world from the face of the earth. This brings us to the global cataclysm that paleontologists call the Grande Coupure. What caused the planet itself to deliver a devastating blow to its most successful creations? Paleontologists call this the Grande Coupure, the Great Break. This wasn't a slow onset of an ice age. Isotopic analysis shows that the average global temperature plummeted by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius over several thousand years. This was shock therapy for the biosphere. Tropical forests that once covered Europe vanished within a few animal generations, replaced by open woodlands and steppes. Fossilized pollen confirms this. A total and rapid shift in flora occurred. Animals perfectly adapted to forests found themselves in an alien world. Their evolutionary advantages instantly became a death sentence. How can a creature as tall as a 5-story building die of starvation? The Indricotherium roams the parched landscape. Its accustomed succulent leaves have vanished, replaced by tough grasses and low shrubs. Its body, a massive metabolic furnace, requires hundreds of kilograms of fuel daily. But the fuel is gone. The furnace begins to consume itself. The Hyaenodon faces the same problem. Its slow, large prey is dying out. Now it's forced to pursue faster, smaller animals, for which its massive body is not adapted. Fossil remains from this period bear traces of exhaustion and disease. The most formidable predators and largest herbivores became helpless victims of an invisible enemy. Their strength proved useless. But did this mean the end for everyone? Total extinction became an act of creation. From the ashes of the old world, a new fauna emerged. The solitary giants were replaced by the ancestors of modern horses, camels, and ruminants. They were smaller. They were faster. They learned to live in herds, finding safety in open spaces. Their teeth changed, adapting to grind the new, tough vegetation. This was not so much a demise as a brutal changing of the guard. Paleontologists call this process filtration. The Grande Coupure sifted out the old world to create a new one, and this filter would have guaranteed your destruction as well. What does the demise of a world that existed 34 million years ago mean for us? We've seen how a climatic catastrophe wiped indestructible giants from the face of the earth. Their strength and size proved useless. But this isn't just a history lesson, it's a mirror. Our own era, with its stable climate and our dominance, is not the rule. It's a fragile exception, a brief moment of calm between global upheavals. The world of Paleogene giants existed 100 times longer than the entire Homo sapiens species. Now that we've gathered all 6 keys, it's time to deliver the final verdict and understand why our existence is an anomaly, made possible only after that world was destroyed. We have traversed all circles of this forgotten hell. Now let's assemble the 6 keys to non-survival into a single, airtight system. The first level of the trap was physical. It consisted of 3 elements working in unison. Your brain, the first key, created an illusion of safety, forcing you to apply ineffective rules and make fatal mistakes. Any such mistake was instantly turned into a death sentence by hyperpredators, the second key. But even if you evaded them, giants like the Indricotherium, the third key, nullified the very possibility of finding reliable shelter. These 3 factors together created a world where you were physically incompatible with the environment. There was no hiding from predators, no defending against herbivores. This was the first and crudest filter. But if you miraculously passed it, a second, more insidious layer awaited you. Having survived the monsters, you would face an enemy far quieter and more inexorable, the planet itself. This was the biological level of the trap. The fourth key, poisonous flora, transformed the lush world into a green desert, where any familiar-looking fruit could turn out to be a lethal dose of neurotoxin. This cut you off from a basic food source. The fifth key, the paradox of starvation, closed all avenues to animal protein. Hunting giants, small game, and even scavenging were impossible. There simply was no available ecological niche for you. This wasn't a direct strike. It was erosion, slowly washing the ground out from under your feet until everything collapsed. If the first layer actively killed you, the second did so passively, through hunger and poisoning. But there was also a third, final layer that rendered any attempts at survival meaningless. And finally, the third, most devastating layer of the trap, the existential. Reality itself was against you. It is here that we get the ultimate answers to the questions posed at the very beginning. Herbivores were more dangerous than predators because they operated on the scale of a natural force, not a hunter. And starvation in a world of abundance was inevitable because there simply was no place for a generalized creature without specialization. The proof? The Grand Coupure, the sixth key. This catastrophe wiped the masters of that world off the face of the earth, demonstrating its fundamental instability. 99.9% of all species that ever lived on Earth have gone extinct. Our existence is not the rule. It is a statistical anomaly made possible only because we were lucky enough to be born in a brief moment of geological calm. We have seen a world that would reject you at every level, physical, biological, and existential. We understand that our modern skills and knowledge there would be mere dust. After all you've learned, we want to ask you one question that will determine our final verdict. What, in your opinion, is the main and fundamental reason for our guaranteed demise in that world? Our fragile, slow, physically weak body, or our mind, our knowledge and experience, which proved utterly useless in those conditions? Write just one word in the comments, your choice, biology or knowledge. Let's see what verdict our community delivers. This choice speaks not only about the past, but also about how we perceive ourselves today.